Welcome back to Beyond Awareness. If you are a business owner or you're working on a project that you want to show the public someday, like I have a lot of listeners that I think who have writing a book on their bucket list, or I was just talking to a friend yesterday who wants to open up a yoga studio, and another friend just this morning who said she's recording herself with her like morning meditations because a lot of people are asking for that. Whatever those like dream projects are, side hustles, you're going to need to brand yourself. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people, hold themselves back from in their business and taking the next step in their business specifically. And they might take a stab at branding or their logo and things like that. And then when it comes to it, they might think, I need to fix my brand before I can actually put myself out there. Or literally, I've said this, once my website looks better, then I'll start directing people there, which is where I make sales. Or I don't feel like my brand actually reflects me or looks like me. And so if you can relate to any of that, then today's episode is definitely going to help you. I have Morgan Specht here. She is a brand strategist and an agency owner who has helped hundreds of service providers actually show up and get seen. But what we're going to really dive into today isn't just the colors and the logos, which I'm sure we'll touch on that because I have questions on that personally. But it's also why so many high achieving women are hiding behind the idea that their brand isn't ready yet, and what's going on underneath that, and the mental load and all of that. And also Morgan is a military spouse and a mom of two who runs her own agency. So she gets the reality of like doing it all and being genuinely having life be unpredictable and building something real while going through all of that. So welcome to the show, Morgan.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat.
Yeah, same. I've been waiting for this. And I thought we could start off with just more about you because your life is so interesting and then what you do is interesting. So how did you get started with branding?
Yeah, so I learned in high school that graphic design would be a good career for me. Actually, I transferred high schools like the middle of my junior year. So you can imagine what that was like. Got put into like digital art and design class because that was the elective that had space. And then I turned out to be pretty good at it. I like won a contest, and it really, being a 17-year-old who just moved to a new town, had no friends, and was like feeling really lonely, was like something that I could feel like I was really excelling at. So that was exciting for me. And then I kind of started to be like, okay, can I like make money doing this? Turns out I could. So went to college. I got degrees in it was a visual communications degree. So graphic design and marketing. And then my plan was to kind of like go work at an ad agency or like marketing for some big company. And then maybe like 20 years down the road, I would run my own business. Or I wasn't really even thinking about it as running a business. I was like, oh, maybe I'll just get to be like a freelance designer. Mm-hmm. So I did all of that. I got a really solid ad agency job, like straight out of college. And I made it 11 months before I was like, I cannot do this for like the rest of my life, let alone like one more minute. Like I burnt out hard. It was not all bad. I made a lot of good friends there, some who I still am close with today. I learned a lot. Like I really cannot say enough for how much you learn in a fast-paced environment like that and like working on real client projects. So it was, in the long run, good for my career. In the short term, it was really bad for my mental health. So then I found a different design job where I was living, did that for like 2 years. It was fine, but I just kind of started to realize that like there wasn't really any room for me to grow there. Like I could keep doing what I was doing forever, but I was starting to get bored, frankly. Mm. And since I had had much better work-life balance at that new job, I had started freelancing on the side. I made a profile on Upwork and I started posting in like some business owner Facebook groups at the time. This was like 2016. So the online landscape was a lot different then than it is now. Mm-hmm. I was designing like a website. I did really any design project I could get my hands on. So I did my first Squarespace website. I did some like labels for a guy who was making hot sauce in his garage. I did a
Wow.
catalog of like children's ballet clothes. Like it really was all over the map. And eventually started getting really busy with freelance work and then kind of reached a crossroads where I was like, okay, I can't like keep taking on more freelance projects. So I got to decide like which path am I going to go down? And ultimately decided that I wanted to try working for myself. So somewhere in there, I hired a business coach and she helped me kind of go from like scrappy freelancer who had no idea what I was doing to having like an actual business with systems and like concrete packages and pricing and all of that stuff. And through that, I learned that the projects I liked working on the most were the logo design, branding, website design projects where I could take a business and like really transform its whole look and feel as like one cohesive unit versus like just like the odd job here and there.
Mm-hmm.
So 2018, my husband and I got married and we went on our honeymoon and I did not go back to my corporate job. And now here we are.
Wow. That's so cool. So I, in high school, told my parents that I was interested in advertising, and the only option my high school had was an art class. It wasn't even like graphic design. Maybe I should have said graphic design. Actually, it was me and this one other girl, and the other girl was interested in graphic design, but she too, it was just art. We were like painting and stuff. And I'm like, this is what you do? Like that's the only thing.
Yeah.
Um,
And I guess in hindsight, I can see this now. I do remember in middle school, like seventh or eighth grade, I was in yearbook. And I do remember like really enjoying that and like subtly getting like annoyed trying to like watch somebody else like put together a page layout in whatever like ancient design program we were using and being like not understanding why like the right thing to do was not as obvious to them as it was to me.
yeah.
So like now I can see that like, oh, that's a good indication that like I really had some talent there, but I
Yeah.
had no idea at the time. I thought that everyone else was just annoying and lazy and, you know, as 12-year-olds do.
I love that you were able to identify that or at least feel it and follow that path because and stay on that trajectory even though your jobs have looked different. I'm curious and you kind of hinted towards this, but what is brand strategy actually? Because when I started thinking about my business, and I was kind of actually in a similar position where I had a corporate job that I actually really did like, and I had really good work life balance, but I just kind of got bored. I knew I didn't want to keep going in that, like to the next level. And I was like, I think I have to leave. And so I ended up leaving and starting to work for myself. And that was when I was introduced, like, oh, I think I need a brand. I think I need to brand myself. I think might need a website. I don't know. And the only thing I really thought of was like a logo, which I made on Canva,
Mm-hmm.
and colors. And that was it. So what else is there? It seems like there's lots of components. So what else goes into the strategy of it all?
Yeah, so there are lots of pieces. Your story is not unique. That's pretty much what everyone does. And I honestly, I think that's fine. If someone comes to me that is in the stage of, I started my business last week, or like I have an idea for a business, I almost never will let them hire me. Even if they have the money and like can't afford it, I usually tell them to do exactly what you did. Like just go make something that's good enough on Canva and go try out your business for like a
Mhm.
year or a year and a half and then come back to me and we'll talk because you really do learn so much in that first year and your offers change and you figure out who your ideal audience really is and isn't. And all of that is really important to building a brand. So if you come to me and you can't answer those questions, then I can build you something that you like that's just Samantha's favorite color is purple and she likes this certain type of flower. Let's make it look like that. And that's fine, but it doesn't really like do anything to attract your ideal client and help you grow your business. That's where the strategy piece comes in, which is who is your ideal client? How do we want them to feel? How do you want to be perceived? Are you like super bubbly and colorful and high energy, or are you more reserved and like refined? And maybe we use like blacks and whites and neutrals. That's a very simplified version of what is strategy, but it's really the the foundation of your brand. So we need to know all of that stuff first, and then we need to create visuals that support that versus jumping straight to the visuals and making something that maybe looks really good, but is not going to send the message you want, is not going to attract the people that you want, and is probably just going to leave you in a year or two from now feeling like your brand still is not quite right. I will also say that I get a lot of people who are in a situation like you where you're like, oh, I guess I just need a logo and some colors. Or they don't consider the brand at all and they think I just need a website. And then I'm like, okay, well, back up, because like, how is the website going to look? All of that is dictated by your branding. What is the website going to say? All of that is dictated by your brand strategy. So it really needs to like be a very intentionally layered process. If you skip to just the parts that are shiny and fun and look nice is all they're going to do for you, frankly.
Yeah. I mean, now that you mention it, I don't even think I jumped to a logo. I got myself a website and then it prompts you to fill in certain areas and it says logo. And I was like, oh crap. I guess I need a logo. I love that you don't accept clients that are just starting out, because you are so right. I've had basically 2 different businesses, and where you start off is not where you will be in a year. And it's even not where you're going to be in 2 years and 5 years, right? And so I love that you are able to give that tip too, of if anyone is starting out, definitely go make yourself a Canva logo and see what your offers are and allow yourself to change. And then those higher level questions that you ask and that you do with your clients, those are so elevated. And that's where the headspace and the mindset changes the longer that you're in business, and you do start to think less of, okay, what's my favorite color? What font do I like? And what's the vibe that I want to attract? And then start thinking, well, who is my ideal client? What type of energy and what type of colors match that energy? And those are the colors that I might want to use instead of bright pink, which is literally is what I used to do. So that's a lot, though. That's like a lot to think through. And I find that so interesting. It takes a ton of time, though. So that's where I start to think of mental load. And like that could get in the way of somebody taking action. So when you think of like the mental load, how does that affect someone's visibility in their business?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, in so many ways. So it's tough because, like you said, like branding and especially doing it right is like a mountain to climb. It is a lot of work. Like there's no way around that, especially if you're trying to be really intentional about it and I won't say like do it once and do it right, because your brand is ever evolving. Like you're going to have to make some tweaks and adjust things. The hope is that when you do it that first time, you've been so intentional and strategic about it that then going forward, you can make small tweaks and adjustments and not have to like burn it all down and start over. So we set it up so that your brand can kind of grow and evolve along with your business would be the goal, which then is kind of like my philosophy is you put in lots of work now so that you can only do a little work later. As far as mental load and like getting held back and stuff, I mean, the best thing you can do is really hire somebody to support you, obviously, because you certainly could go do research on the internet. You could read all my blog posts and download my brand strategy workbook and like do most of this yourself, but it's going to take you a lot longer. It's going to feel really hard and you're not going to enjoy the process, most likely. Versus if you have someone like me holding your hand and like asking you to do only the parts of quote the work that only you can do, if that makes sense. So like I will send you a branding questionnaire. It's like 25 questions, I think. You have to answer those because that's all information that's in your brain and from your clients and whatever. But then after that is when I take all of that like mess that's inside your brain. I get clients that say this all the time. You took all of my like scattered thoughts that didn't make sense and you turn them into something logical. And they always are so like, oh my gosh, how did you do that? Like that sounds so good. Or like these brand values are so amazing or whatever. And I'm tell them like, you did that. Those are your words. I just organize them in a way that makes sense. So I think working with somebody to help you really gives you permission to just messily kind of word dump everything out there and let somebody else do the mental work of sifting through it and figuring out what's important and not important and what makes sense. Also, the am I doing it right question will hold you back forever because you'll, you know, fumble your way through the strategy part and do like a good enough job. And then you'll say, okay, well, my strategy is this. So that means I need to choose like these colors. And then even though you have like a logical reason for doing what you're doing, you are still going to sit there and be like, well, I don't know if they're quite right. And like be tinkering in Canva forever instead of just putting your offer out there and marketing it. Mm-hmm. Versus if you have somebody that you can lean on to say like, is this the right thing to do? And then, oh, Morgan says yes. I don't know psychologically like what is happening in our brain, but we want somebody else to tell us that it's like okay to move forward, if that makes sense. So yeah. As far as in the branding process, that's what I would say. Now, I look at branding and brand strategy in particular as kind of like the filter through which you make decisions in your business, right? I have this analogy that moms in particular love, that branding is like having a meal plan, right? So I'm not saying every single Monday we eat chicken tacos and Tuesday we eat spaghetti and meatballs and Wednesday it's beef stroganoff. Like I don't mean necessarily that specific, but it gives you the parameters to know like, okay, Monday is Mexican food, Tuesday is pasta, Wednesday is sandwiches. And then you get to decide what Mexican food or what pasta or what sandwiches, but you're not starting from zero every time you have to plan a meal. Same way with branding, you know, okay, this is my ideal audience and this is my core message. And these are like the pillars of things that I talk about. And I use these colors when I create graphics. So you are still making some decisions, but like 80% of them have already been made for you or by you when you did your initial brand strategy and design.
That's so helpful. Even thinking of like the content, like what you talk about in, you know, content, I first think social media posts, but even like newsletters or blogs or podcast topics, whatever outlet it is that people have, knowing that pasta night, right? And then you can make whatever type of pasta you want, having that structure, but flexibility within that structure, I think definitely reduces the mental load as well. Because especially for somebody who's a business owner full-time and someone who is just thinking of like, ooh, I want to sell my book someday. I want more sales from Amazon with my book, or I'm an Etsy seller or whatever. It's like you get to the end of the day and you've just got nothing left, especially if you have kids, especially if you've got like all those responsibilities. And so that flexibility within the structure, I think, yeah, you said moms love that. I'm obviously a mom and I'm grasping onto that. I definitely think that that is super helpful. And then the other thing that I was thinking of as you were talking was when you said the am I doing it right? But what I was thinking of is back to a time when I was changing my mind about what I wanted. And I realized that my website had one set of like colors and fonts, but I was sending my newsletter in a different set of colors and fonts. And I was like, oh no, I'm like, I feel like I have two different personalities. And I don't know how many people, I have this vision that nobody goes to my website. Actually, I would love to ask you about that. Maybe I'll save that next. So, but what's your advice or perspective? What's coming up for you when I say like, what happens when a client comes to you or a client is going through that, like, I've got this over here, or like my content is all about like, let's say people pleasing and self-sabotage, but I want to start talking about not just pasta. I want to talk about Mexican. You know what I mean? Like I want a shift into something else.
Yeah. So I think the good news is that even as our businesses grow and evolve, the thing that stays the same is us, right? So it's still Samantha talking about pasta or Mexican food. And especially as like a smaller business or a personal brand, that is what people are here for. Like, yes, they're interested in your specific topic of expertise, but there are 1,000 people out there who talk about the same things you do. They're interested in your version of it. So the good news is that I think that we don't need to worry as much as probably we do about like, oh, people are going to like drop off or be confused or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's okay to call out that like you're going to start shifting the services you offer or what you're going to be talking about or whatever, just to like give people a heads up. I'm a big fan of sending out an email and being like, hey, you know, over the last few years, XYZ has happened, which has prompted me to take my content and business in a different direction. And like, here's what you can expect from me going forward. If that doesn't interest you, feel free to opt out. Like, it's okay. So I think that's fine. I think that you can keep some consistency with like your visuals and the way that you write and talk and post and like the cadence that you put out content and all of that stuff so that it still feels familiar. What we don't want is to create a scenario in which somebody who's been following you for like years, for example, all of a sudden thinks that like this is a completely new business. Like, oh my gosh, I've never heard of or from this person before. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah. Like what, like a 180 almost of like, who is this? She's using new words, new stories, new everything. So staying, and I like what you said starting out of like, you're the same person. So that the chance of that happening isn't likely. That would be like me talking about people pleasing and self-sabotage and then switching to like being a Love is Blind commentator, like recapping that each week, which would be interesting, but like I would never do that for a business, right? So maybe the fear inside is greater than what's actually going to happen, right? Like that would never happen. And so we think that like, oh no, if I talk about this, everyone will drop off, like you said. And will they though? Like, not really.
Yeah. And I mean, I went through something sort of similar to that. And I think that, I don't know, a good takeaway for people is that like we really need to give our audiences more credit. Like we are growing and evolving as business owners, which is why we make shifts like that. But so are they. So I told you I started out designing like ballet catalogs and hot sauce labels and whatever. I am yesterday and tomorrow doing a VIP day for a client who hired me at first during that time and has like stuck with me ever since. And I have gone through so many changes of niching down into logo and brand design. And then more recently, having a really heavy focus on like the strategy piece. And there was for sure parts of me that were like, oh, people are not going to be interested in this. Like they just want the fun, pretty stuff. And I've had so many people like you that are like, I'm so fascinated. Like, tell me about brand strategy, please. Of course, there have been some people who have fallen off, but those probably were not my people anyway. And like, that's fine. But I think to say, oh, if I, you know, grow and evolve and shift what I'm talking about even slightly, that people are going to like not care anymore, I feel like is really putting your audience into a box and being like, oh, they're only smart enough to care about this one tiny thing. Like they couldn't possibly have multiple interests or be curious about this new direction just because they're curious about me.
Yeah. I love that. That's definitely freeing. And I don't know why the word people pleasing is coming up for me during this episode, but it's reminding me of, I was working through people pleasing at one point, and something that felt so freeing was when I realized that I can ask somebody else for help and they can say no, and giving them the power of like, oh, I don't have to feel bad asking for help, knowing that they can say no, and like giving them the credit. Like they're not a people pleaser. They might not be. Like I should give them more credit and agency to say no. I shouldn't automatically assume that they feel like they have to say yes just because I feel like I have to say yes. And I love this too. Like we shouldn't assume that they can't evolve just because we are evolving. That's so good. I now want to touch on where my brain went a second ago, which was, I feel like no one visits my website. What are your thoughts on that? On like the person who says like, no, I don't think anyone says this, but like websites are dead. Like you don't need a website, you need social media or something else.
I think that is preposterous. Not just because I'm a website designer, but
Yeah.
from like I'm a customer. I hire lots of service providers. I buy lots of things. I look at the website first 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And I'm not like I don't think I'm that big of an anomaly.
Yeah.
I Yeah, and I just like, I mean, anecdotally, it just drives me up the wall whenever I see like a huge creator on Instagram who sells like a digital product or whatever, and all they have is like a stand store or something. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why not? Like, if that's what platform you want to use to sell your stuff, like, cool, but you should still have even just a single landing page for a
Yeah.
website. First and foremost, because if somebody Googles you, you want your own website to come up. Like drive traffic to something that you own, not some other platform that who knows when it will go down or it will get sold or the price of the subscription will like go through the roof, or you'll find out that the people, this has been a big thing lately, you will find out that the creators of it have like values that don't align with yours, and now you don't want to use that platform anymore, and now that's where your whole audience is, and what are you going to do?
Mm.
So, yes, you still need a website. You don't need like an 85-page, super robust, complicated website. You could totally get away with like a very simple kind of brochure style Squarespace website that's like 1 to 3 pages.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. And as far as like, oh, I feel like nobody visits my website, you should be checking your website analytics and see if people are visiting your website and what pages they're visiting and like any of that stuff. I'm always shocked because I feel the same way. And I think my website's pretty good, but I'm like, oh, nobody's going there. They're just like interacting with me on social media or whatever. But then I get like 2,000 website hits every month, and some of them are probably bots, but some of them have to be real people. So the other thing that I think, and this is something that I'm just recently diving into with my own website and some of my clients' websites, is there is a tool called Microsoft Clarity, which again is like very new to me. I'm not an expert at all. Like, go do your own research. But you can install it on your website. It's free, and it will like give you notes and recordings of how people are using your website. So you can see like somebody landed on your website from Pinterest, and then they spent this long on this page, and then they clicked this button or filled out this form or whatever. And that has been fascinating to me from a perspective of like just optimizing my website so it's easier for to navigate, because I can see where people are getting stuck or leaving or whatever. But in like a weird mental way, it's also been really reassuring to me that like, oh, there are real people that are like reading the stuff on my website and like clicking the buttons and looking at my portfolio and all of that stuff, which I knew before, but to have like a real window into that has been pretty cool.
Yeah, I love like the analytics. I feel like I'm a nerd in that sense of I'm always looking into like, yeah, I do look at like what pages, how many people are actually visiting what pages. And I think that that's so helpful too, because if you know that people are looking at your portfolio, testimonials are going to be huge for you to share. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like we can start using that. And it's not just a website where people go to look at your offers. Like you can see data like that I don't think people who have never had a website realize, that
Yeah.
it's another space, like you said, that you own, that is it's like an extension, like another arm that
Mm-hmm.
you can feature your services, your testimonials, like more about you. And one thing that I love too is that it's like on 24/7, right? Like you don't have to, send somebody the link to your offer. It's like
Mm-hmm.
always on. And I wrote this down too, like look at your own behavior. When I said like no one uses websites and you said you do, and I'm like, wait, me too. Like, right, I always go to somebody's websites, even if it is an influencer, I still go to their website. I'm also the person, speaking of nerds, I will read like the fine print. Like I will
Mm-hmm.
go through like the whole sales page. I'm that person. So if I'm that person, I'm probably attracting people like that. And so it might be worth to have a website or have certain pages and whatnot. So I like that. Look at your own behavior, analytics, Microsoft Clarity. I'll have to look at that. I heard that Google also does something like that.
They might. I had a different tool that I used like years ago, and then I started to find it to be not that helpful. So I just got away from it
Yeah.
entirely. And I don't know what it was that made me be like, oh, I wonder if there's anything better out now. And that was the one that I found, and it's been interesting so far.
Nice.
But yeah, and I think too, the example that I use is we have a rental property in a different state. So we pay yard people to come like mow the lawn for us. So when I was looking to find people, I Googled like lawn maintenance in Nampa, Idaho. And then I opened the first like 5 or 6 websites that came up. And then I closed all the windows of ones that like had a 404 and didn't work, or they looked really like sloppily put together, or I could not easily find their contact information. And then I was left with like 2 or 3 to choose from. And then those were
Yeah.
the people who I called for quotes. And I think that is a very typical way of like searching for somebody to do a thing for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially professional services, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you are looking for that level of detail and care. If you're not putting that into your own work, then they won't be putting that into your work. I actually have somebody that I know does branding, and her website doesn't work. And
Oh,
that was, yeah. I was like, okay. I have not mentioned that to her. But yeah, certain links don't work. So anyways, tell us about your brand audit. I know I think that's a free tool that you have, right?
yeah. Yeah, it is. So how the standout brand audit came to be is for the last 3 years, I have had a lead magnet basically that was called the 5 minute brand audit. And somebody would be able to fill out a form, give me their social handles and their website. And then I would, with my own 2 eyeballs, look at it and record like a 5 minute loom and give them some feedback on it and say, here's this button's broken or your logo's too small or whatever. And that was really great and people loved it. But as I started to dig more into strategy and like incorporate that into the work that I was doing, it really felt like a disconnect because I was saying, okay, start with strategy, start with strategy, start with strategy. And that is 100% a hill I will die on. But then I was doing these audits for people that focused only on visuals
Mm,
because 5 minutes is not enough time to like dig into somebody's strategy. And if I'm going to collect all of that info from them, like who's your ideal audience, what's your core message, etc., that's not like a free 5 minute thing. That's like a paid service.
yeah.
So with the accessibility now of AI, I was able to build a custom GPT that does that, that goes, ask them some questions, goes through who their audience is, what's working and not working in their business, what do they like and not like about their brand? Are there any big changes coming up? Like, are you scaling from a single person to having a team? What are your core values? And kind of looking at what you already have, what is out there for the world to see on your website and your social media. So you give it your links to that, and then it will give you back basically a brand report card that says, okay, you're doing great in these areas. You have some room for improvement in these areas. Here's a handful of things you can do really quickly and easily. And then, like, here's where your focus should be going forward. So it's like an insane amount of information that you get from just chatting with this bot for like 15 minutes. And it really, I had a couple people test it out for me who were clients of mine. And I was like, hey, go do this and then send me back. I want to read it and see if it's what I would say. And all of them, it blew me away that I was like, this is like almost word for word the feedback that I would have given you knowing your brand. But you would have had to pay me like several $100s to spend the time to dig into this. So it's pretty cool. It's free. It's a really great way to learn to like, if you are new to brand strategy, I think to kind of like dip your toe in without having to obviously commit to a full project and just see like, okay, am I actually doing better than I thought I was in some areas? Where do I really need to focus? Do I need to rebrand or not? Like those type of things.
Yeah. And also, I love that it's split up based on different areas because, at least for me, going back to mental load, it's like, oh, I might not need to redo the whole thing. I might just
Mm-hmm.
need a couple areas, which is like, oh, it's like a breath of fresh air knowing that
Yeah.
you can take small steps.
And just to reassure people too, everyone thinks that like they need to just scrap it all and start over. That is almost never the case. Like if you want to, if you're like, I'm ready for like a complete fresh start, by all means. But I think people tend to really overestimate how much needs to change or like the amount of work that it's going to be. And then they do an audit or they have a consult with me and I'm like, no, actually you're like 60% of the way there already.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm definitely going to use that tool. So I'll share the link for that in the show notes. And this episode has been so amazing on the side here. I've been writing down permission slips. I didn't feel like you've given me and our listeners permission to A, use Canva when you're first starting out, B, shift and evolve, like grow and our brands can grow with us. And then also hire help and like accept the help, receive help, like let others hold us accountable and do the work for us so that we don't have to do all of that, release that some of that mental load, which also feels like just so refreshing. Before we wrap up, where can my listeners find you just to see more of your stuff, see that portfolio, see your website, and chat with you if they want to?
Yeah. So portfolio wise, I would check out my website and my Instagram. My handle's at Specht and Co. I am really most active on Threads lately, interestingly enough. My handle's the same. And then I'm also on LinkedIn. It's not my fave, but I'm really trying to prioritize LinkedIn in Q2. So follow me over there and maybe like give me a little encouragement.
Awesome. So I'll put those in the show notes as well. So you guys can go follow Morgan, check her out. And also everyone stay tuned for Thursday because I decided to put together some strategic journaling prompts to help you figure out what's keeping you from putting yourself out there. So if you've been afraid of being seen or visibility, then those prompts will help you. And then you can come back to this episode. And if you're ready to take that next step with your brand, then that'll be an amazing combo. But thanks again for everyone tuning in. And thank you, Morgan, for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to Beyond Awareness, the podcast where we close the gap between knowing and doing. If you're ready to heal what's holding you back from success, start with my free Calm Mind Blueprint at www.samanthapenkoff.com/calm-mind. It's a 5-day strategic journaling practice with prompts and voice guidance from me. And if you want to go deeper, book a 90-minute breakthrough intensive. Links for both are in the show notes. And if you know someone who would benefit from this episode, I would be so grateful if you shared it with them so that they can make decisions from clarity instead of drowning in overwhelm. I will see you next time.